Please welcome to the stage CEO and Chief Product Officer of NLX, Andrei Papancea.
Today we're going to be talking about a practical view on conversational and generative AI. My name is Andrei Papancea. I'm the CEO and Chief Product Officer of NLX. In case you're trying to place my accent, I'm originally from Romania. And NLX is a New York City-based company working with global brands, transforming their customer experience through automated conversations. We work with brands like United Airlines, Red Bull, Comcast, and many others. I've previously built the conversational AI platform for American Express, not too far away from here at 200 VSA. And for the last few years, I've also been teaching cloud computing and AI engineering special topics at Columbia University and NYU. In the brief time we have today, I'd like to shine some light onto the current state of the conversational and generative AI space, and specifically what's practical, what's out of reach, and what you can start with today. Surprise, surprise, welcome to the conversational era, where if we look at the history of applications over the last 2-3 decades, we started with desktop applications, then we moved on to web applications, then mobile, and now we have conversational applications. This is a very important concept to grasp in order to better operationalize this new class of applications. And to do that, let's cover a little bit real quick what the anatomy of an AI assistant is, because I think nowadays you could think of them as of magic wands, and let's look a little bit behind the black box. So for one, you start off with channel connectors. These are the touch points between the end user and the applications themselves. This could be the phone, if you're trying to make a phone call. This could be a chat interface, an airport kiosk, right? They don't all have to be the typical channels you might think about. Next, if you're talking about voice assistants, they typically have two AI components. A speech-to-text engine effectively transcribes the audio into text, and then the reverse of that, taking the text and synthesizing it into those AI voices that we're all accustomed to. Next, you have what's referred to as the NLU, or the Natural Language Understanding Engine. And effectively, this is, think of it as a reasoning engine. It kind of glues together all the different components to sustain a conversation. So if I say hello, you might come back and say, hi, Andrei, I see you have an upcoming flight to Chicago this afternoon. Is this why you're calling about? The natural language processing and the large language model is that next component. And largely, these things are used within what I'm outlining here to identify intent. The difference between I want to cancel my flight being cancel flight intent versus my flight is canceled, which likely means I'm checking on or I'm reporting a flight status and I might need to change my flight. And last but not least, and purposefully outlined with the blue box, content. While I was at American Express and thereafter, I've learned that the most important factor that contributes to automation is not the AI, it's actually the content. And the content is comprised of a myriad of different things, ranging from brand knowledge to copy to integrations. And of course, I put a little bit in the middle there, optionally, AI-generated content if that's appropriate for the use cases you're serving. Here's a quick snapshot of how this might look like in the context of technologies and players that you might be familiar with. To the left, you have the channels. The big blue box in there is the NLX engine, but effectively, the anatomy is consistent regardless of who powers these applications. The different natural language processing and LLM providers, all the way to systems on-premise that you might need to access to pull up reservations or customers' profiles, or all the way to the contact center providers. So let's take a look at the current state of the art of these AI assistants. As I'm sure you're all aware, both OpenAI and Google have announced in the last couple of weeks some meaningful new advancements in functionality to their assistants. And there's this particular concept where a user can interface with the AI through multiple input formats or modalities. Simply put, if you watch these videos, if you haven't already, a user can speak to the AI assistant while taking a photo or video and then engaging about what the AI sees, so to speak, resulting in a very natural conversation. Now, this concept of multimodal AI is not particularly new. As a matter of fact, Apple Siri and Amazon's Alexa have been exhibiting these capabilities for some time now. But the current state of the art in speech AI technologies, content generation, natural language advancements, and so on, allow these AI assistants to act more and more natural, which is what we're experiencing today. So I'm telling you all these things, all these cool things get released. So what's really the gap? And my answer is intelligence. As a matter of fact, computers are pretty dumb. They're really, really fast, though, at mathematical operations. And you know what AI actually is? It's actually rooted in statistics. And statistics are rooted in math. And in that regard, you know, every so many years, there's early technologies that get rebranded as they become mainstream, and then they become hype, which is kind of what we've been experiencing since the beginning of last year. And large language models are not a new concept at all, just a rebranded one. As a matter of fact, Google invented the key innovation behind this technology called the tensor back in 2015, and then they brought it to market, open sourced it. 2015 is when they released it, and 2018 is when they made it public. So let's talk about what's practical today. I'll start off with our award-winning experience with United Airlines, an exhibit of multimodal AI. Hopefully it starts playing. Oh no, we did not test the video, huh? Let's see. No, too bad. I don't know if anyone behind the scenes can hit play on the video. Let's see. I'll try one more time. I'll give it a second. Well, what you should be seeing in the meantime is someone making a phone call. And effectively, as you engage with the AI assistant over the phone, the particular person is trying to effectively add a wheelchair to their flight. If you think about the specific use case, and sorry, I'll keep trying to go back to it, but it doesn't want to. If you think about the use case of adding a wheelchair to a flight, it's very complex. If you think about the voice-only input, it's too clunky to sit there and communicate the complexities of, you know, my wheelchair is this size, uses this type of battery, this type of feature, that type of feature. And instead, the AI sends a text message to the end user, and effectively that text message contains a link that then takes them to a website, a mobile app, and instead of the phone call dropping, which I'm sure you've experienced those types of experiences in the market, the voice assistant stays engaged, synchronized to what the end user sees on the screen, and continuously guiding them all the way through task completion or to an agent. And again, I apologize, the video is not playing. It's not playing for the second one either, so I'll have to kind of narrate that a little bit more. So as I mentioned, the first type of practical AI is the multimodal one that I just mentioned. The second one is what we refer to as a generative journey. If you think about generative AI, more broadly speaking, and when I say generative AI, I want to contextualize it to the textual component, of course. The output of those models is generated text, right? And text is unstructured. In order to drive any form of utility or business outcomes, you need to introduce structure. So this what you should be seeing playing on the screen is effectively this travel experience that we're actually going to announce in the next 2 weeks, where it's a convergence of search and shop. You're able to start the discovery process. So let's say I might want to go surfing with my friends in July. It's the generative AI that engages in providing insights into where you could be going. And then as you narrow down the options, you can transact right then and there. And in order to facilitate such an experience, you need to be able to dance between the, let's say, open-endedness of the generative AI conversation or the unscripted nature of it, and then pull back into structure, because in order to pull hotel content or airline content, you need to be able to effectively access some systems of record, if this experience is deployed with, in this case, let's say like LATAM Airlines, they only want to show flights that are powered by them and vice versa. This next one, this next component in the practical bucket is this concept of channel agnostic AI, where in a world where consumers increasingly expect to interact with brands whenever and however they choose to, being able to move between the different channels and modalities without loss of context is pretty powerful. And effectively being able to maybe start a chat conversation, and as you move into the car, being able to switch over to a hands-free voice interaction without losing any context and being able to pick up from where that's left off. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's not yet practical from what you're maybe hearing in the market. Number one, guardrails. And you know why? Because they're rooted in statistics. And the idea of trying to contain something that's inherently rooted in something that's guaranteed to be imperfect is going to be imperfect. So it's important to understand this, because this very concept implies that you can prevent unintended behavior, which is not a guarantee. Next, artificial general intelligence. Certainly not via large language models, because they're de facto a very sophisticated autocomplete. As I mentioned, all of these models are effectively rooted in math, and the computer is really good at doing that very, very fast. And as these innovations have progressed over the last couple of years, we're able to take advantage of the amazing capabilities that are on the market, but these things are nowhere near close to sentience. And lastly, this idea of omni-capable AI, where you just kind of throw AI at something and it just works. To kind of use a concrete example, we work with a number of large enterprises ranging from travel to hospitality to and beyond. But in the airline world, let's say a company wants to add the capability to their AI assistants to add a pet to a flight. Well, if you don't have digital infrastructure to facilitate those capabilities, you can't transact that. Simply put, if you don't have an API to add a pet to a flight, no amount of AI is going to solve that for you. And if you think about it, the same applies to human beings. If you take let's say you hire a customer success rep, right? You put them behind the phone line, and you give them no training, no tools to look up customer information. They're only going to be able to do so much. They might say hello and goodbye and maybe tell you a joke, but that's about it. So it's really important to really understand what practicality entails, so that with just conceptually, practicality in AI means accepting and expecting its imperfection. And once you accept the state of the art, then you can build practical applications on top of that. I think in this next segment, we're going to Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure we're clear about what your company does, like if someone is interested in being a customer. Mm-hmm. So you were explaining to me earlier that if someone wanted to use tech from OpenAI to build something, they might need software developers, they would have to go through all of that. But you basically take all this technology, you have made a platform that uses all of it, and then you don't really need to have tech skills to then build a multimodal conversational tool using your platform.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Simply put, our platform, so our core product is a platform. It sits on top of all these different innovations. Entirely, we're AI model agnostic. And this roots all the way back to my experience at American Express, where I had to evaluate the majority of the natural language processing providers at the time in the market. And the learning was that the differences between them in production were relatively irrelevant, because the main driver of automation, as I mentioned, is the content. And customers oftentimes have a preference for one provider or another. Sometimes it's based on performance. Sometimes it's just based on my company only works with XYZ. But the way these applications get built is the same, irrespective of the provider or the models you're using, because they all functionally do the same thing. So then we've elevated that in a way where customers just have to focus on their business logic and then leverage the AI technology of choice under the hood.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, do we have time for like one or two more questions? It looks like the clock's out.
I think that was just my personal timer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know if we don't. We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
So if a customer, so my question, another question I had was, so like OpenAI, you mentioned that we saw recently how they have this really cool like way to interact with the robot, with your voice, with video. So basically, as those AI models improve, your platform improves. They're able to use that as well.
That's correct. Effectively, as new models and capabilities within the specific models get released, we incorporate them and make them accessible and effectively programmable, but without having to write any code by people. So as new capabilities get released, we incorporate them, and then customers can just leverage them.
Yeah, but you also mentioned earlier that if there's like maybe a consumer asks the chatbot about putting a pet on their flight, but if the airline doesn't have a program for that, the AI isn't going to solve.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so the airline can't expect AI to like magically solve problems. It's just a way to kind of connect their programs. And
that's exactly right. Yeah, it's not the magic wand.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the bulk majority of the effort is whenever, let's say, building or integrating or deploying one of these experiences, irrespective of the use case, gets tied back to the capabilities you're trying to kind of put forward. And if some of those capabilities rely on some sort of system integration, et cetera, if that system integration is not there, then you're not going to be able to bring the functionality forward.
Yeah, and we might have time for a question or two from the audience, so if you have some, put it in. So you had a project with United, with Copa. How long does it usually take if a customer says, "Oh, I want to build something using your platform"? How long does it usually take to set something up?
It varies. I'd say, on average, anywhere from 3 to 6 months. We've done customer implementations in as little as 3 days, full production deployment. But I'd say they're unusual because it requires an orchestration across the organization, from legal to marketing to IT, that it isn't very common. But ultimately, the way we build product is to minimize the amount of time spent leveraging the technology and the innovations, and effectively make sure that the customers just focus on running their business and building the use cases that they want to put forward to their customers.
Yeah. Do you understand that question in the bottom? There's a question from the audience.
Any travel-specific insights on how a system chooses among the content available? Let me just internalize that a little bit.
Is that clear to you? I don't know if I understand the question.
On how a system chooses among, well, probably. I think I know what this might be leaning towards.
Yeah.
So I think this refers to how a travel-specific, well, how a system might choose to pull content, maybe whether it's FAQs or specific systems of record, or whatever it returns back to the end user. And ultimately, I think I heard in the previous talk, someone was talking about intent identification and classification. When it comes to, if you're a brand, I'm kind of purposefully putting purely consumer experiences like ChatGPT to the side. If you're a brand, the majority of your traffic in your contact center, as an example, is likely driven by 10 to 15 different topics. Yeah, sure, there's a bunch of other FAQs and things like that, but largely there's like 10, 15 business processes that eat up a majority of the traffic. So the key in accomplishing that is to use these AI systems to drive very accurate intent identification, and then you funnel them to like a business process.
Yeah. And then last question, I think, from the audience. So you mentioned no code. How much
how many development resources or specific skills are needed to implement.
Yes.
A majority of our customers use largely non-technical staff to operate these applications. It's not by, it didn't just happen randomly. When I was at American Express, I'm an engineer by trade. I guess I didn't get to mention too much about that, but I built everything. And every time the business units wanted to add content, copy, integrations, analytics, reporting, etc., I had to do it all. So NLX is meant to, sort of reduce the dependency on people like myself or anyone with specialized skill sets to democratize access to these applications. I genuinely feel that conversational applications, again, are this new and very effective mode of human-computer interaction. And the easier we make it for people and organizations to build them, the faster the adoption will be.
Good. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everyone.